Welcome back. Just about half past the hour now. You're watching CNN Newsroom. I'm Erica Hill, joining you from New York. President Donald Trump signing 4 new executive orders, which could reshape the U.S. military as we know it. Those directives include banning transgender service members, gutting the military's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and reinstating with back pay members who were discharged for refusing a COVID-19 vaccine. The president claiming all of these actions will, in his view, increase military recruitment.
I think we're going to have a lot of people that join. We were having a hard time recruiting people because they were looking at these people that they were supposed to be their leaders, and they weren't happy. They didn't like people that fall going upstairs.
Those orders came down on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's first day of leading the Pentagon.
This is happening quickly, and as the Secretary of Defense, it's an honor to salute smartly, as I did as a junior officer and now as the Secretary of Defense, to ensure these orders are complied with rapidly and quickly.
Hegseth, of course, has been a vocal critic of diversity programs in the military, expressing his issue with them on a podcast ahead of his confirmation.
The dumbest phrase on planet Earth in the military is our diversity is our strength. The integration of the military racially was a huge success. But now we're pushing boundaries on lots of different levels that are different than that, because men and women are different. Because being transgendered in the military causes complications and differences.
Joining me now, military analyst, retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Always good to see you, Colonel. As we look at all of this, also just a point of clarification, when it comes to reinstating the ability to reinstate military members who had refused the COVID-19 vaccine, it's important to note that they were actually allowed to rejoin starting in 2023, thanks to an order that was signed under the National Defense Authorization Act, which required that change. This may go a little bit further. When we look at where things stand here, what do you make of these initial orders and what it says about the direction of the U.S. military?
Yeah, good morning, Erica. It's great to be with you as well. There are several factors here, I think, that are quite interesting from a personnel perspective. First of all, on the COVID-19 reinstatement, there's going to be, I think, a bit of a problem with bringing these people back because, quite frankly, they disobeyed a direct and lawful order when they refused the COVID-19 vaccine. So there are a lot of reasons for people to refuse the vaccine, none of them scientifically grounded. And that's, I think, part of, that's definitely an issue. And as far as the transgender piece is concerned, they talk about the idea that they frown on diversity. Well, there have been transgender members of the armed forces that have served for a number of years now. There have been no real reported incidents of there being any issues in terms of readiness or their readiness to be combat proficient. And that is another aspect here. So what we're seeing in total, I think, is an effort to bring a political agenda into the military. So instead of combating the so-called woke aspects of the military that people like President Trump and now Defense Secretary Hegseth see, we're looking at a situation where they could bring not only more divisiveness into the ranks, but also they are ending up politicizing the way in which the military is run, and that is going to be a significant issue.
To your point, we have heard from Secretary Hegseth. We heard in his confirmation hearings, his statement certainly, and then in response to some of the questions, his goal is a more lethal U.S. military. Is there anything that you know from your time in service and even from being in contact with folks after you retired that in any way would make a transgender person less lethal or less able to do the job simply because they are transgender?
Simply because they are transgender, no, because they are, they're basically, once they've undergone their treatments and, had whatever surgery was required, that is, something that doesn't impact lethality at all once they've recovered. During the recovery phases, there may be an issue, but that's true for anybody who has an injury in the military. Wounded people, wounded service members don't, go back to the front lines after they're wounded if the wounds are serious enough. And so readiness is always an issue with any kind of person, but transgender specifically, there's no difference in lethality between a transgender service member and somebody who's not transgender.
We've been hearing from a number of transgender advocates, many of them veterans, who have spoken with my colleagues here at CNN, just in terms of their thoughts on these directives and what it means for the military overall. I want to play some of what Layla Ireland had to say.
It's really important to highlight that transgender service members, thousands of us, the individuals are currently serving in the military, many in specialized positions, requiring years of training and expertise. Replacing them would result in significant operational gaps, weakening the effectiveness of our armed forces and our national security. So it's really interesting to hear our new Secretary of Defense say that we're not capable or worthy of that service.
It is important to take into account experience and training of all members of the military.
Absolutely. And Layla has made an excellent point here, because warfare has become a much more cerebral enterprise. It's not just infantry forces in contact with each other or pilots, flying dangerous missions. All of that is still true and will continue to be true. But what is also a key element of the military is the fact that it's an intelligence-based organization. It relies on communications. It relies on specializations, including logistics and firefighting and a number of others. And these specializations require people to be ready and competent within those specialties. For example, after 9/11, we had a shortage of Pashto and Dari linguists, the languages of Afghanistan. And we had to find people that had those kinds of experiences and that kind of knowledge. And that required not only time, but also a ramp up in training. And there are similar challenges that we're going to be faced with should we have to go into combat in another location around the world. So any type of specialization, like a language specialization, a cultural specialization, and a technical specialization, all of those are critically important. We talk a lot about artificial intelligence now, especially with the advent of the Chinese developing, the latest enterprise there. And that is going to require a lot of technical expertise that is lethal in its own way, but it's going to require talent and basically the ability to have an intelligent approach to combat that has all kinds of different phases to it. And if you don't have that approach to combat, you're not going to win the wars of the future.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I will note one other transgender U.S. Army veteran telling my colleague John Berman this morning it would be nice to be part of the conversation, that she would actually really enjoy to speak with the president rather than just being spoken about. I do want to ask you before I let you go. There was also this executive order signed to create an Iron Dome for America. Just real quickly, is that something? I mean, Israel and the U.S. We hear Iron Dome, we think of Israel geographically. It's very different when we're talking about the U.S. versus Israel, obviously. Is this something that the U.S. needs?
Well, it's going to be really difficult, Erica, to implement something exactly like that because of the geography, the fact that we're a much, much larger country than Israel. And keep in mind that the Iron Dome is only one component of the Israeli missile defense system. There are two other components. The Iron Dome is a short-range system. The others are medium and long-range systems. And that kind of ironclad protection that is purported to be what the Iron Dome does was actually augmented by the U.S. using Aegis and other capabilities. That's the kind of thing that we have to keep in mind as we develop any missile defense systems of the future. The Iron Dome is not the panacea that some make it out to be.
Colonel Cedric Leighton, always appreciate your insight and your expertise. Thank you.
You bet.